Hey Forge fans, it's the Forge Audio Network. I'm Anthony Urciuoli. This is your match in review. Forge FC losing 3-0 on the road against CF Montreal in the quarterfinal of the Canadian Championship, the 2022 version. We have to say the years because we have a 2020 Canadian Championship final coming up soon. It's just easier to keep things clear. So, Forge, it was a rough one. First half, especially. We're going to hear from Forge head coach and technical director Bobby Smyrniotis, but I'll give you a bit of a spoiler alert. He says, in his own words, the worst half of football in Forge's history. So what, 3.5 years? The worst he's seen his club play in the first half. So, and the score reflected that. Ibrahim for Montreal, the unlikely hero in the sense I'm not sure many would have predicted a hat trick, but Ibrahim did. He scored in the 14th minute, then in the 22nd minute, and then Forge came out looking better in the second half. I mean, there was a lot of fight, but again, it was Ibrahim who finished off the hat trick with his head in the 49th minute. And as we break down the stats here, Montreal 17 shot attempts, Forge had 5. 7 shots landed on target. And Tristan Henry, Forge's keeper, had to make a lot of really good saves. So he was busy. And he was actually really good. And this could have been a lot worse than 3-0. But 7 of Montreal's shots landed on target, with 3 of them going in. And Forge had 1 shot on target. Possession, 59% in favor of Montreal. Pass accuracy tells the story. Forge wasn't bad. They're at 82%, which is just a little below their average. So it's not that, Forge was inaccurate. Montreal was passing at 90%. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Forge did not get a lot of pressure in that final third. There were a lot of holes in the midfield, a lot of holes behind players. It just, Montreal looked quicker. They looked way more in control than Forge did, and the score does reflect that. Not a ton of time to worry about that, though. And I'm going to, just because we're kind of talking Canadian Championship, I know Forge has a league match coming up with Edmonton, but I think we're going to spend a little more time looking ahead to that match against Toronto, just in the spirit of the Canadian Championship. Before we jump into that, though, as promised, let's check in with head coach and technical director of your Forge FC, Bobby Smyrniotis, post-match.
The worst half of football we've ever played in that first half. Comes down to that. You can't come into these matches and not put the energy that's needed. You know, these matches need energy. These matches need a lot of movement. Something we talked about, and we just didn't have it to start the match. I wish I knew what the answer was, but I don't have that. But it simply comes down to that. That's the worst half of football we've played in our 3.5 years of existence. And we've played in big matches before. We've played in these matches, so it's not the event or whatever is going on. It's another game that's on a Wednesday night. So that's, I think, what it comes down to.
In the locker room or something?
No, I thought everything was good. Preparation was good. I think the tactics, what we talked about, we didn't execute them well in that first half. And to be honest, I think Montreal, although they had quite a bit of rotation in the squad, you can see the freshness in the players. On the flip side, you have players who haven't played much, who are hungry to prove something to their coach and want minutes going forward. And I think they did well for themselves in doing that.
Hi, I'm Sheldon Marshall, Canadian Press. I can understand that you were very unsatisfied with the first half you played. Is there anything that they did that maybe impressed you was different from what you had seen from them?
No, to be honest, they were on script. Tactically, they were on script on where they wanted to be in the half spaces with guys like Miljevic and Sanusi moving off of Kamara. So it was pretty much what we expected in them using the width. I just think we didn't do a good job of handling the midfield and how we asked our guys to do it. And once you lose the tactical components in games like this, in those zones, I thought they were able to overload the midfield and then move the ball around. And that put them into a rhythm. Early goal obviously comes, and that throws off a little bit of the rhythm of the team. And we saw that up until probably for a good 35 minutes of that first half.
Hey Coach, there was a big gap between the line of defense and the goalkeeper. Was that wanted? Do you wanted your line of defense to play a bit higher, or it wasn't?
There's big gaps everywhere. in front of our defenders to our midfielders. The line between our goalkeeper and our defenders, I think, wasn't the issue. The issue was the line between the defenders and the midfielders. If you look at that first goal, Miljevic gets the ball in the pocket, something that we had talked about, and him getting it there. And those are the situations where you have to be better. And we've got two players in and around the area, but the ball's being slotted through. So I think that was the danger point for them, and it's something they do very well in their games throughout the season. And once you execute in that area, you give yourself a better chance of scoring goals. That's what statistics tell us, and that's what everything we look into the game. So, like I said, for them, it was on script, and we didn't counteract that in that first half.
Toronto played Halifax yesterday. They had a tough time winning the game. Is there always something special for you guys from the CPL when you come in against a team from the MLS? And is it more disappointing for you today that you played the game you played?
In all honesty, there's nothing more special. It's a game on a Wednesday night against a team with a bigger budget. That's the only thing that's the difference. But bags of money don't score goals. Players do. Tactics make things happen. So for us and as a club, that's how we functioned throughout our short history as a club. And we've played in a lot of big matches. You go in and you play the matches. You try and match the tactics, try and see where you can be better from that end. So, the disappointment today isn't so much that, we didn't beat CF Montreal so much in the performance that we've put in, because we know these games are always going to be difficult. But we know we've got a lot better in us than what we've shown in that first half.
Do you have an update on Garvin Miché, who came out on an injury?
Yeah, no, it looked like a pretty bad knock that he had, but they're assessing him right now, and I haven't gotten any update on him.
What do you say to your team now for following the next part of the season after this tough loss?
Yeah, you're only as good as your next game. That's the thing. If you won today and you lost the next one, nobody cares what you did today. They care about what you did on that day. So you're just as good as your next game. So we go out and we've got a big week ahead of us. We travel to Edmonton, which is an important game for us. Must 3 points of getting it there. And right after that, we play Toronto FC in the 2020 Canadian Championship. That is correct. But a game that's needed. It's something that we earned as a club back in 2020 through the way that the competition was run then. And I think it's fair to the clubs that somebody's able to lift that trophy. So we've got another game coming up next Saturday against the team that plays in MLS.
I got a question. What about Omar Brownlee? I was expecting him coming back to Montreal to face his former team, but can you clarify his status? Is he still part of the team?
Yeah, a lot of government officials, paperwork, a lot of different things. So the one thing that's not clear to me is his situation. So if I had some more information, I'd be able to give that to you.
Do you want to talk about one of the storylines with Matthew playing his brother David tonight?
Yeah, I think it's a great story for the Choignard family, for their mother that I saw before the game, and she was obviously excited. I think those are special moments when you have two guys who were born, I think, on the exact day, 2 years apart from each other. So they obviously grew up playing this game together, training together, doing everything in the sport together. I have two young boys who are 2 years apart, so I can imagine what that household looked like. And both are having some great success. David's had great success with our club and winning a lot of championships after being formed here in CF Montreal, and Matthew has had a very good season last year. This year a little bit more in the midfield. So I think it's a very proud moment for their family, for their parents, to be able to see both of their kids on the field. And I'm sure in the end of the day, mother, father, and the whole family is always going to come out as a winner in this game, right?
All right, so Forge FC, they will travel to Edmonton on Tuesday, May 31st. That's a 9 o'clock start time. Eastern time. So Forge gets one more league match. Coach Bobby called it a must-win game. And after that, Toronto FC will be the next opponent for Forge. That'll be at Tim Hortons Field on June 1st in the 2020 Canadian Championship Final. All right, he's a commentator with One Soccer. He called tonight's match between Forge and Montreal in French, and he joins us now. Matthew Cullen, thanks for joining the Forge Audio Network.
Hey, listen, thanks for having me, Anthony.
That was one of the worst halves of soccer I've ever seen Forge play. And, making it that much worse is that Montreal played really well. So when those two things happen, it's usually not a good sign for a side like Forge tonight. And I think we kind of saw that.
Yeah, it was a tough one for Forge, right away. And, to be honest, I think that Bobby Smyrniotis pretty well summed that up. It was the worst half that they've played in the franchise's 3.5 years. And comes as a surprise, Anthony, because this is a club that's played big-time matches, right? They're a 2-time CPL champion. They went to the finals last year. They've been in the CONCACAF Champions League, the CONCACAF leagues as well. I mean, those are tough games and tough environments. So, really to come out and really not have an answer for CF Montreal. Certainly it was a surprise, but you got to give CF Montreal credit, right? A lot of people were building this up as the rematch of last year in the semifinal, even though this was the quarters. And, certainly that was the case, but the situation is different, right? This is a CF Montreal team that is a good team in the MLS. Last year they were on the outside of the playoffs looking in, and this year we can see why they're in the top 4 of the Eastern Conference.
In a lot of ways, it's what Forge is looking. I mean, the way Montreal played tonight, in a lot of ways, that's how Forge plays, in the Canadian Premier League. A lot of pressure on the ball. They're playing that possession style of game, and Montreal did it almost perfectly. And it was a side of Montreal that they didn't have a lot of starters in. Even just watching the game, it was called kind of the B squad a few times. That kind of when you see that kind of success, regardless of who's in the lineup, that kind of speaks to just a system, and the players have bought into something, and they all have a role. Every single man has a role in that system.
Yeah, that's a great point, Anthony. And Bobby Smyrniotis touched on that as well, right? These are players that weren't getting a lot of minutes. They're in CF Montreal for a reason, right? There's not a lot of spaces in MLS clubs. It's a great league. They're there for a reason. They're hungry. They want minutes. They want a chance to play and prove what they can do. I really thought we saw that from Matko Miljevic in midfield, right? He had a terrific first half, and on set pieces as well. He delivered a beauty at the end to Sanusi Ibrahim, which was his third of the night. And, speaking of another great performance, right? Guys that he's only played 4 matches for CF Montreal this year, and Ibrahim came out with his first career ever hat-trick for the CF Montreal. So, guys that we're not really used to seeing, but they're there for a reason. And, we saw this a little bit last year as well, where Wilfred Nancy will kind of roll the dice, right, with his selection. And, to be honest, it almost bit him last year in the semifinals, right? I think I called that game last year as well. I thought Forge was, highly the better side. And, when you get into a penalty kick, especially when you go to 11 shooters, that's really a toss-up, right? That very could have easily been Forge in the final instead of CF Montreal. So a lot of people were referencing that, but, these players in CF Montreal, good formation, good system. They're hungry, and, they really showed it in that first half. And, combined with what you said, which was, a rather relatively lackluster first half for Forge. I thought they had some better moments in the second half where they, had some chances around Pantemis, but that's what happens. And there was a few breakdowns, and it was I don't think a lot of people had money on a hat trick for Sanusi Ibrahim, but that's why we love sports, I suppose, and follow for the surprise element. And I'm sure for Forge supporters there's some disappointment, but a chance to focus on the CPL table and the standings. And after that win in Halifax, you have to look at this team is going to be a great team this year, and they have a chance to go deep again.
Yeah, and the match last year against Montreal was in Hamilton. It was at Tim Hortons Field, which will be the location of this year's Canadian Championship final, the 2020 version. If that's confusing to anybody, I'm gonna have to ask you to Google it. I'm tired of I've explained it too many times.
On the broadcast too, we haven't had the 2021 yet.
Yeah,
here we are.
Yeah, but the big difference maker there for Forge was the fact that they were playing at Tim Hortons Field, and they will be against Toronto FC. And Toronto FC hasn't been anywhere near as good as Montreal has this season. So I wonder if, putting this match aside, Forge is still in a pretty good spot playing another MLS club in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and David Choinière said that as well. You take it, you learn from this, right? And you're right. Toronto FC have not had a great first half of the season, a couple of bright performances, but they've really lacked in terms of their defense. They've given up 25 goals, I think, in 11 or 12 matches. That's the worst in the Eastern Conference. So, for guys like Emery Welshman and Taron Campbell, Wubens Pacias, even Choinière, they've got to be licking their chops thinking there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to lift some hardware in front of our fans against an MLS club, and not only just an MLS club, but, think you could probably say one of the most successful Canadian clubs in soccer history. So, a great opportunity. You take this match. I'm not a big believer of you put it in the garbage can or you rip it up or you burn it. I think you always have to learn something, right? What do we take away from this match? Maybe there's some tactical adjustments to be made, but I said it in the broadcast on One Soccer tonight. We haven't seen Forge play like this. We haven't seen them. We haven't seen a team like that impose their will. So I really doubt, that we'll see that twice in a row. I mean, if I know Bobby Smyrniotis and his team and all, there's going to be a different response to this game. And, just like what happened to Toronto FC on the road in Halifax, right? I mean, there's a pretty good comparison, right? Halifax, there are no slouches at home. Wanderers grounds, that's a great atmosphere. TFC, barely got by.
Right.
Forge made pretty quick work of Halifax at home. So, if you match those up, I think we'll have a good one on June the 4th.
Yeah, sounds like science to me. I'm not even sure how we can dispute any of that.
Comparables.
Matthew Cullen, you can hear him call soccer matches on One Soccer in both languages, I guess, or French at least, and also does work for the CBC as well. So, Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, and talk soon.
All right, so next up for Forge, a trip to Edmonton, Tuesday, league match, June 4th, the next home match. And that will be against Toronto FC in the Canadian Championship Final from 2020. Tickets available. They expanded seating at Tim Hortons Field for this match, so tickets are available now, and it's going to be something. It's a long time in the making, ever since Forge FC was announced, ever since the CPL was announced. Soccer fans in Hamilton have been waiting for this one. 3.5 years later, they will get it. Keep it locked to the Forge Audio Network. We'll have plenty of content coming up. Previews, reviews, player interviews. You know the drill. If you follow, you can subscribe to our podcast, the Forge Audio Network. Get our content on YouTube, on all the Forge FC official social media channels, and of course online as well on the Forge website. So your final again from Montreal, 3-0. CF Montreal over Forge FC in the quarterfinal of the 2022 Canadian Championship. We'll talk to you soon.